Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Fix Computers. In this section of my Windows 10 wrangling series, we're going to talk about upgrading Windows 7 to Windows 10. So this is obviously the biggest part that this series wants to focus on, which is getting all of the Windows 7 users upgraded to Windows 10. So there's two aspects to this that we need to discuss. Firstly is licensing, and secondly is preparation. So firstly, I will be making a separate video that covers all the intricacies of Windows 10 licensing, but the important thing you need to know is that if you have an activated copy of Windows 7 on your computer, you're entitled to a free upgrade to Windows 10. So it doesn't matter how your Windows 7 was activated, whether you have an OEM license that came with your computer or laptop, or whether you install it by some other means. If Windows 7 says it's activated, when you upgrade to Windows 10, you will automatically have a Windows 10 license by digital entitlement, as it's called. And that means once that is done, that computer is permanently entitled to Windows 10. So the other thing is the prep work, which I'll discuss more about in a moment when we get into it. However, the main thing is, to do this, you're going to need a Windows 10 flash drive, and we're going to upgrade Windows 7 to Windows 10. And at the same time, we just need to watch out for any pitfalls along the way. Now, a common problem that people will have when they upgrade from 7 to 10 is that 10 does not slow your computer down per se. However, the act of installing Windows 10, because you're plonking a new operating system down on top of the old one, that creates a mess everywhere on the computer, which may slow it down. This is one of the reasons why in the early days of Windows 10, a lot of people took the forced upgrade in the GWX program. They put Windows 10 on their computer and they said, oh, I installed Windows 10 and it was ever so slow. That wasn't because Windows 10 was bad, it's because their computer had just had a new operating system plonked on top of it with no servicing whatsoever. If you do that with any operating system, you're likely to have a bad time. So there's one more aspect we need to deal with as well. When you upgrade to Windows 10, you have two choices. You can do what's called an inline update, where you update Windows 7 directly to 10 and you retain all of your programs, your documents, your settings, everything. There's literally a direct upgrade from one to the other. That is called an inline update. Your other option is to do what I would refer to as a clean install, where you can either install Windows 10 from scratch, and you can either have all of your old Windows 7 stuff be put away into an archive folder, or you can erase your computer and start with nothing at all. So I will cover the clean install option in a separate video. This video is going to focus on the inline update. So with all of that said, let's get into it. Okay, I've got a Windows 7 laptop here that we're going to upgrade to Windows 10 now. So once again, we're going to do an inline upgrade. So that means that we're going to upgrade Windows 7 to Windows 10, preserving all of the user data, the applications, and preferences. So this is the ideal preserve everything update. Now, I've already done a little bit of servicing on this particular laptop to get it ready. And that was simply what I've done is I've ensured that we've got plenty of free space. When this laptop came to me, the main hard drive was actually chock-a-block full. But that was due to other faults with the laptop that I've now resolved. So again, just make sure that any particularly egregious issues with the laptop have been dealt with before you try and update it. So make sure you've got enough free space. At a pinch, I would make sure that you have at least 30 gigabytes free. Like obviously the more the better, but I think if it, in a pinch, the minimum is sort of 30 gigabytes to not have any problems. Even though Windows doesn't require that much, if you have less than 30 gigabytes, you're likely to run into problems. Because when you install Windows 10, it will have to copy the setup files to the hard drive, which takes up space. Then it needs to unpack them, which takes up more space. And then it needs to install them, which takes up even more space. Once you've done all that, it will then all condense back down again. It will remove all of the installation files, and you can remove the previous install of Windows, and so on and so forth. However, you need that space to work while you do the installation. So make sure you've got lots of free space available. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clear Windows Update, because that is the other really common point where you'll get hung up updating 7 to 10. So the first thing I'm going to do is take this laptop offline. I'm going to switch off Wi-Fi on this thing. So have we got a Wi-Fi switch? I have. I'm just going to press this Wi-Fi switch, which doesn't work. Awesome. Fine. I will just disconnect then. Okay, we are now not connected to the internet. And what I'm going to do now is we're going to clear Windows Update. So the first thing I need to do is turn off the Windows Update service, which will give us access to the files. So I will press the Start button, and I'll type in CM for Mother D, CMD for command. Right-click on Command and Run as Administrator. And I'll accept the user account control, and I'm going to type in net space stop space Windows Update automatic update serve and press enter. So now the Windows Update service has been stopped, I can now delete the update cache. So what I'll do is we'll close this, we don't need this anymore, and I'll go to C drive, Windows, and then I will find software distribution, which is there. Now this is the Windows Update cache folder where it downloads all the updates that are pending installation. So I'm just going to delete this entire folder. I'm just going to press Shift Delete on the keyboard, permanently delete the whole thing. And this is completely safe to do so. It will come up with the sort of, oh, you need admin rights and stuff like that. Yep, continue. Completely fine with that. Anything that is actually needed from this will just be rebuilt by Windows Update, should that be required. However, we're not going to need any of it when we get to Windows 10 anyway. So that's now been deleted. So we've cleared the Windows Update cache, and now we're ready to begin installing Windows 10. So I'm going to get my Windows 10 flash drive connected, and then we can start the installation. Okay, so here's my Windows 10 flash drive. ESD USB, that's Electronic Software Distribution USB. So I'll double click on that, and I'm just going to run Setup. So I'll double click on Setup, and I'll accept the UAC prompt. And now we're going to probably get a lot of cuts while I sit and wait for it to get to each screen. Once we get into the installation, the bulk of it is unattended and you can walk away. However, for this first section, we've got to keep coming back and forth to update a couple of questions. Here's the first screen, which is the preparing. Okay, right, here's the first section. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to unselect the I want to help them make the installation better. This is not out of any kind of tinfoil hat theory or anything like that. This simply means that the setup will collect information about this installation for Microsoft to look at. Now, this doesn't collect any personal data. It's basically so Microsoft can see what Windows 10 is being installed on, what hardware it's being used on, so they can then tailor and account for that in updates. They can go, people are installing Windows 10 on an ancient MSI laptop here. Let's make sure it works on that kind of thing. However, I'm unselecting this because this data collection and then sending it back to Microsoft adds on to our install time. So I'm unselecting this just to streamline everything to be as fast and smooth as possible. Now, in addition to this, there's an option for change how Windows Setup downloads updates. Now, I've already accounted for this by disconnecting from the internet, so I know that it's not going to download any updates because it can't. So we've already covered that section as well. Let's hit next. So now it's going to check for updates, and it should breeze through this because we've deleted the Windows Update cache and we're not connected to the internet, and we're past it already. That's the most common place where you'll get hung up doing the Windows 7 to 10 update in my experience, and that's why we did that prep work beforehand. Okay, and I'll accept the license agreement. And now we've got to wait for another progress bar. Okay, so now we've hit the first stopping point, which is where the setup will tell you about anything that needs to change or is not compatible on your computer. So this is the point where it'll tell you about any programs that it knows already are not going to work after the Windows 10 update. So just because there are no programs listed here doesn't mean everything will work. But this usually refers to things like Microsoft Security Essentials, or just no antivirus that has known issues, that kind of thing. In this instance, it's warning us that it's going to change our display language. In this case, it will change it to English US. For reasons unknown, the Windows 10 setup always installs as English US. But don't worry, because in Windows 10 you can change the system language on the fly, so this isn't a problem at all. So we're just going to hit OK to that and acknowledge it. And now we've cleared up all of those conditions, it's just automatically advancing to the next stage. So now it's confirmed that we're going to install Windows 10 Home, and we're going to keep all our personal files and apps. So this will retain personal files, programs, and preferences. So the computer will have everything on it, everything will be just as it was, except now on Windows 10. So this is known as an inline update, and it's the most ideal way to upgrade, in my opinion. Well, for the vast majority of cases anyway. So let's go ahead and click install. And now we land on this blue screen. So this is a full screen application. If I press the start menu, I can actually still get out of this. So if there's anything that you missed or anything that you didn't close, you can still close it while it's installing. However, I'm going to go ahead and just leave it sitting on this blue screen. Once it's gone through this percentage, the laptop will restart into the Windows 10 setup and carry on of its own accord. And it'll do another 1 or 2 reboots after that before we finally land on the Windows 10 first run. So I'll get back to you when we hit the first run wizard. In the meantime, the only other thing worthy of note is once we finish this first 100% progress bar and done the first reboot, after that we can then remove the Windows 10 flash drive should you wish to. So if you've got multiple computers to update, after the first reboot, you can pull the drive out and get your next one on the go. Right, I'll see you guys after the cut. Also, pro tip, if you're stuck on a long progress bar and your laptop keeps going to sleep because you forgot to turn off your screensaver, never wake it up by pressing the space or the enter key, because you might just accidentally activate the cancel button. If you need to keep the laptop awake, use the shift or control keys, because those never do anything on their own. So just tap the shift key or an arrow key or something like that periodically, and that'll keep the laptop awake without accidentally cancelling what you're doing. Okay, right, we're back. And if everything looks enormous after doing the initial upgrade, don't panic. It's probably because the device has not installed any drivers yet. So we're going to be running with no graphics drivers or anything. So everything is all going to look a little bit sketchy. Don't worry, we'll have all of that sorted in just a moment. Firstly, we've got to get it through to the desktop. Then we're going to turn on wireless and get all those updates installed. First, we've got to go through the first run wizard. So you're going to get this sequence here where it'll be like, hi, welcome, we've got updates for you, etc., etc. And then after a few moments, it should kick you to the first run wizard. Alright, and we're finally at first run. So at this screen, it's going to ask us various questions about what services we want to enable and disable. So this is mainly to do with data collection. And this isn't a privacy thing. None of this data uniquely identifies you or anything like that. But for example, with companies like Microsoft, in order to make their speech recognition better, they have to collect samples of speech recognition, of speech that has been given to the computer and analyze it. So what they're asking is, do you want to offer samples of speech in order to help us improve our services? Now, because all of this telemetry has an impact on how quick your computer runs, some of it you might want on, some of it you might want off. However, for the purposes of setup, I just switch all of it off. And then if you want any of it on at a later date, you can turn it back on again. So I don't want to do more with my voice. I don't want to use speech recognition. I don't want to turn on location services by default. Location services might be helpful later on down the line. So again, this is something you might want later, but for now, we're just going to say no to all of this. I don't want to have Find My Device. I don't want to send any diagnostic data. And I don't want to send any improvements for inking and typing services. And then finally, we don't want any other targeted adverts either. Or advertising ID. There we go. Right, we're back onto the desktop, and as you can see, everything is enormous because we don't have any software or configured yet. So the first thing I'm going to do now is we're going to take this thing online again, and then we're going to run Windows Update to get all of these drivers installed. So I'm going to reconnect to wireless. So now I can go Start, I can go Settings, and again, everything is very slow at the moment. Don't worry about that. We'll come to that in a moment. The first thing we want to do is get all of our drivers installed. Then we'll look at the overall performance of things. So just push through it for now. Update and security. Let's maximize this, and we should be able to get the non-mobile view. Okay, and check for updates. So now we're going to let this run through, and I'm going to keep checking on this, and every time it gives me the option to install updates or retry, I'm going to hit install or retry. And if it wants to reboot, we let it reboot, then we go back into Windows Update and we check again. And we rinse and repeat as many times as is necessary. It might take 2 or 3 cycles of install updates, reboot, check again. And eventually, when we hit check for updates, and it says there are no updates, we hit check again, and it still says there are no updates, then we're fully up to date. So now I'm just going to run it through all of this. So this might take a while, so we're just going to be patient and leave it to run. Okay, first restart later, and as you can see, we've now got graphics drivers. We've still got a long way to go with this thing, but it's starting to come together. So we're going to go straight back into Windows Update, and we're going to Windows Update again. And this is the stage where you start to realize that doing the Windows 7 to Windows 10 upgrade, it's not that it's difficult or anything, but there's more to it than just hitting the update. And this is why the Get Windows 10 program that happened when Windows 10 first came out was hit with so much backlash, because the issue is that there's lots of people who had old Windows 7 computers just like this, and with zero prep work, they just said Windows 10. And took it up to Windows 10 with no prep work, no servicing, no aftercare or anything like that. And yeah, unsurprisingly, Windows 10 runs like junk if you don't do the prep work and the aftercare work. So that's what we'll be showing you here. So anyway, once again, I've hit check for updates. Notice it said that you were up to date except for optional updates. I'm going to check again anyway, and then I'm going to hit install those optional updates. And we're just going to go round and round until it literally says there are no more updates, even after I've checked it. Right, and after checking for updates, it's saying that you're up to date, however there are optional updates available. So the optional updates, I'm going to install these anyway, just because never not. So we'll install that as well. However, it looks like I actually left this thing running overnight, so it looks like it's actually done most of it in the background overnight while I left it. So I'll install those optional ones, then we'll be done with the updates and we can move on to servicing, which will then fix all the performance issues that we currently have. Okay, so we've cycled it through Windows Update, and I've just hit check for updates again, and it's still saying I'm up to date. As you can see, last check today, 11:35, it's now 11:36. I've clicked and clicked again. We're absolutely done on Windows Updates. So that's all the hard stuff out of the way. Just to double check, I'm going to right click on the Start menu, and I'm going to go to Device Manager and just make sure that it's found all of the drivers for this laptop. And yeah, there's no markers there at all. What I'm looking for is any of these that has expanded out with a yellow exclamation mark on it, but everything there is absolutely fine. So now at this point, there's a couple of cleaning up things that we're probably going to want to do. So firstly, the laptop will feel sluggish at this point, just simply because where we've installed a new operating system, it's going to be fragmented to hell. So what we want to do is defrag the hard drive. Obviously, if you've got an SSD, you won't have this problem. However, if you've got a computer running Windows 7, I'm guessing you're still running a hard drive. So the program I use for this, my weapon of choice is Auslogic's Disk Defrag Portable Edition. However, Auslogic's, their software can be a bit hit and miss. Some of their installers have got a little bit of junk in them. The portable one is fine, but if you're a bit uncertain, another option would be Piriform Defragler. And I'll put links to these in the description down below. Auslogic's is When you find the portable version, I find that ASLogix is the fastest and most efficient defragger. Piriform Defraggler is free and from a trustworthy company, but it's painfully slow. Once it's done, but it takes forever. So make of that what you will. At any rate, I'm now going to defrag this. Now, bearing in mind, I actually defragged this laptop before I started. So if we do an analysis with this, you'll see how installing the updated version of Windows has made a mess everywhere. Wow, look at all this grey stuff. What on earth is all of this? Yeah, so we've got a lot of... the page file is all over the place on this. This laptop still needs a fair bit of work. Am I going to show you this? I'm not, because to be honest, all of this grey unmovable stuff, that's not the end of the world. Just doing a basic defrag will fix the worst of this. I will leave servicing for another day to get the absolute bleeding edge most out of the computer. But at the very least, do a basic defrag, and that will fix the worst of the performance drops. So past that, there are some other tweaks that I would do with Windows 10, but I'm going to leave that for another video where I talk about my personal setup for Windows 10. So check that video out to see what basic setup I do that I think makes Windows 10 just a little bit more comfy. In the meantime, we've now got this Windows 7 computer onto Windows 10, so it's now up to date and it's now covered by security updates. So once again, also another friendly reminder, if you're running third-party antivirus, Windows 10 has got built-in antivirus in the form of Windows Defender. And Windows Defender, in my opinion, is superior to all the third-party antivirus. Because not only does it not bother you, it leaves you alone unless you actually need to do something, but it's significantly faster due to being actually baked into Windows instead of running on top of it. So you can run your third-party antivirus if you like, but trust me, Windows Defender is faster. So yeah, that's about it. So if you're running a free antivirus, I strongly recommend removing it and just letting Windows Defender do its job. Past that, thank you very much for watching. That's the end of this segment. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.